Let's call this meeting in order. I'll have a moment of silence. Comments from the public? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Chris Goff.
Come up to the podium and.
My name is Chris Goff, and I'm also with Justin Appleberry here, and we are with the NWL, which is on the consent list tonight, from the National Wrestling League. Our venue's over on 18th, East 18th Avenue, and it's our new home. We've moved here recently. We want to start having events there. They're going to bring in about somewhere between 300 to probably 450 people once a month at that facility. We're partnering up with a lot of the local companies already around us. We're right next to Chicken and Pickle, Cinder Block Brewery, other companies. I don't know, we're up to 5, 6 now that we're sort of dealing with, sort of trying to become part of the neighborhood. So we just wanted to come here tonight and meet everybody.
Okay, welcome.
We're excited to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay, consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Appointment of Director of Liquor Control, Resolution Number 18-020.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Police Chief, Steve Beamer.
Thank you, sir. As the council's aware, Matt Brantner, who was the Director of Liquor Control, resigned effective Saturday. And with that news, we hated to see Matt go, but we wish him well as he's now moved on to state liquor control. And we'll still be working Clay County, so we'll have an opportunity to work with him from time to time in that capacity. Before Matt left, he helped us identify a candidate that he thought would be a good fit to replace him. That individual is John Harbrucker. Mr. Harbrucker met with myself and Mr. Berlin about 2.5 weeks ago to discuss the position and what was entailed with it. The council received Mr. Harbrucker's resume last week for your review. He is here tonight to introduce himself to the council. I think he's going to be a good fit. His experience with Kansas City's regulated industries, I think, will help us as we move forward in managing our alcohol establishments. Mr. Harbrucker?
Thank you, Chief. Nice to meet everybody.
Welcome.
Look forward to working with everyone.
Two.
Looks like you can handle it.
13 years in Kansas City has helped me along.
Okay. Hold on, just.
I have a quick question, and it's probably for our staff. As far as, I see in the contract that it says up to 24 hours a week at $45 an hour. Do we know normally like how many hours a week Mr. Brantner worked for the city on average?
I cannot provide an exact number, but the 24-hour week cap in there is not necessarily that we expect Mr. Harbrucker to work that many hours, but that maintains his status as a part-time employee, and therefore he has no benefits available that would be available to a full-time employee. That's why that's written in the contract.
Okay. I was just curious.
Normally, during most of the year, this may be a job that requires 3-4 hours a week, depending on whether or not there's going to be alcohol, beverage, or establishment inspections or something like that. during the month of June, when all the licenses come due,
Uh-huh.
obviously there's more time invested at that point.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? What,
Second Amendment to North Kansas City Destination Developers Master Development Agreement, Bill number 7283, ordinance number 9080.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. The city's master development agreement with the master developer of One North currently provides that as Phase 1 of the One North project, on or before the first anniversary of the effective date of the Spine Road, which is April 5th, 2018, 2 days from now, the developer shall enter into a component development agreement with a component developer for hotel, grocery, and apartment project components. The developer had indicated to us not too distant past that he's been having a difficult time locating a viable, experienced candidate willing to develop and operate a grocery store on the site for a store of the size that we are requiring in the master development agreement, which is 35,000 square feet or more. Under the provisions of the master development agreement, failure to meet that requirement by the deadline could put the entire project into default. That's something nobody wants. And so we have been working with the master developer and his legal counsel on a master development agreement amendment that would remove the possibility of default. So before you then is a second amendment to the master development agreement. The significant changes to it are as follows. The scope of Phase 1 in the master development agreement currently requires to develop it, or to require the three components that I mentioned. The agreement would be amended to remove the grocery store from Phase 1 of the project and move it into Phase 2. Then with regard to the grocery store, as I said, part of what the developers told us that you might conceivably be able to find a smaller grocery store operator, but is having a difficulty with the 35,000 square foot requirement. So far that we still would like one that's at least that large. So after some negotiation, what the development agreement before you would provide is that if the city maintains its requirement that the grocery store be no less than 35,000 square feet, then if the developer has not identified a component developer by January 1st of next year, then the city would have the right to terminate his rights and obligations to develop it, and we would then have the right to proceed and to try to do that ourselves. And then if we weren't able to do that by a later date in 2019, then the parcel identified for the grocery store could be developed by the developer for some other use, provided that the developer and the city mutually agreed on that, on what it was, what it is. If the city were to reduce its requirement that the store be at least 35,000 square feet, then the developer would be given 6 months to develop the reduced size grocery. If he wasn't able to do so, then the city could then take over and try to attract a grocery developer ourselves. And then if we weren't able to do that, then again, we could mutually negotiate for conceivably some other use on that site. Those are the significant changes with regard to the grocery store. There are a few other relatively minor changes to the development agreement. One would be an extension from the date of April 5th until September 30th for the developer to enter into an agreement with component developer for the hotel and apartment project components. Some changes in one section are intended to make it easier for the developer to close on property transfers to component developers, but it would still maintain, we feel, adequate protections for the city related to having to obtain the necessary permits and approvals and get our necessary assurances of good financing and bonds, et cetera. And then lastly, last October, commercial billboards were removed as in an ordinance we actually adopted that permitted 2 billboards, one on Armour and one on I-29 and I-35. So the provision that is currently in the development agreement that listed commercial billboards as a land use restriction was no longer deemed applicable, and so that's been removed. So we do now recommend to you this second amendment. I believe the Master Developers Council was here. If you have any questions of him, we'd be happy to try to answer questions, any questions you might have.
I just want to reiterate the residents' strong desire to have a grocery store
We understand.
somewhere in North Kansas City. I know you recognize that, but I just wanted to reiterate that point, as well as has the developer indicated what may go in there if it's not a grocery store? Has he had any indication of what he would be interested in putting in?
No. So far, the only discussions that have occurred, at least at any kind of a serious level, have been about a grocery store, because staff recognizes that that is a council program.
And my only other small concern with this, I guess, is it kind of feels like dangling the carrot out there a little bit, because we go to January 1st and then June 1st, 2019, and we just kind of keep stringing this requirement along. It may be here, it may be here, it may be here, but probably not going to be there.
We're trying to account for all the possibilities and give both the developer and, if he can't do it ourselves, with the recognition that we may need to look at this again. If it does prove that neither of us is able to, then we may want to take another look. But it doesn't bind the city to allow any other use there.
Thank you.
First reading.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
An ordinance approving Second Amendment to Master Development Agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and North Kansas City Destination Developers, LLC regarding the Armour Road redevelopment area.
I move that bill number 7283 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9080.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Lodahl? Yes. Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance approving Second Amendment to Master Development Agreement between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and North Kansas City Destination Developers, LLC regarding the Armour Road redevelopment area.
15.
Adoption of Economic Development Incentive Policy, Resolution Number 18-021.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. At your last work session on March 20th, the City Council considered the adoption of a city economic development incentive policy to provide guidance to property owners and developers in the city on the use of public economic incentive tools. And we were instructed to place it on your agenda tonight for your formal considerations. We do recommend adoption of the policy. We are receiving more and more interest in incentives, and we think that it would be a good idea for us to have guidance for ourselves and to provide guidance to others. So we do think that this is an appropriate time. Do want to let you know that yesterday the city clerk received a petition to form a community improvement district here in the city. That is covered in the proposed economic development policy. I think that the petitioner wanted to get that in prior to your consideration of the policy tonight. And so, but that will be coming before you at some time in the not distant future. Staff would still be guided by the guidance that's in the policy, regardless of the fact that it was submitted before your formal consideration tonight. As I say, I don't believe that that's a reason not to move forward tonight. You could always make an exception if there was some way in which the petition did go against something that might be in the policy. The policy is not something that locks you in. It's guidance, and that's all. So we do recommend adoption of the policy at this time.
Yeah, I think we talked about that specific potential conflict in our work session.
We did.
On this topic. And I just wanted to clarify, this is applying to both businesses who may want to come into the city as well as development within the city of property owners or businesses in the city, correct? Okay, thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 16.
Award of contract, chemical treatment of ash trees, Resolution Number 18-019.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the Public Works Director, Pat Hoffer.
Thank you.
The emerald ash borer was first discovered in ash trees in Dag Park in November of 2014. When the city's arborists later looked at them and to determine the extent, they came back with a notice that there were over 100 trees throughout our city that were affected by the emerald ash borer. In May of 2015, the city took a proactive approach to slow or stop the onset of the emerald ash borer and minimize the loss of ash trees by contracting with a qualified landscape company to chemically treat 287 ash trees. Only ash trees listed on the tree inventory as being in good condition were treated. The remainder were slated for removal. Conservationists recommend that ash trees be treated every 3 years and for approximately 12 years. Every 3 years for a 12-year duration to improve the chances of surviving. It's been 3 years since the initial chemical injections. And springtime is the most effective time of the year to inject the chemicals because the insecticide rises up when the when the trees absorb rain. So funding in the amount of $48,000 for the chemical treatment of approximately 240 ash trees was included in the 2018 transportation budget. On March 27th, 6 bids were received. Staff has deemed the bid submitted by True Green Lawn Care Service in the amount of $41,012.74 is the lowest and best bid. The resolution's been prepared for consideration of approval.
Who did the original?
It was True Green that got the first contract.
No.
What they told us both then and again this year, their pricing is the same pricing as their big contract with Kansas City. So I think we got a real good deal on that.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 17?
Number 17, Facility Usage Agreement, Fire Department Training, Resolution Number 18-018.
Eric.
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the Fire Chief, Dave Harkis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight, we have an agreement with the South Platte Fire Protection District to use their training tower to conduct live fire training. NFPA requires us to do a certain number of hours every year of actual live fire training in a live fire environment, and we don't have a facility in our city limits. So last year we contracted with them and did the same thing there, and it turned out to be a good partnership, so we're seeking to do the same thing again this year. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 18.
Agreement with Landfill for Disposal of Contaminated Soil, Resolution Number 18-022.
Eric.
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last October, you approved a change order for construction of our Vernon Street improvements in the Armour Road redevelopment area that covered a lot of work associated with environmental conditions on the site. This work was necessary to allow us to manage the soil that was impacted by arsenic in this area and to protect the workers that were working in the area, safely handle this soil waste. It's special waste, not hazardous waste. The change order you approved in October did not include disposal of the special waste. At the time, we had no way of knowing how much special waste would be generated by the construction. And before we can dispose of the waste, we have to know what type it is. We have 3 different types of special waste that are being removed from our site. And at this point, we're ready to start planning for its disposal. We have one more activity that's likely to generate some special waste, and that's all, just one more inlet, and then we'll be ready to move everything out. The facility where we will be taking this is the Courtney Ridge Landfill in Sugarcreek, and the agreement with them to allow us to dispose of the special waste there does include an indemnification clause, and our city councilor has advised that this is something that should be approved by council and signed by the mayor rather than by staff. We're estimating that the cost to dispose of this at Courtney Ridge will be in the range of $11,000 to $14,000, although we won't know exactly until we know how much special waste has been trucked to Courtney Ridge. This is within our budget authority for this project, so this is mainly to allow us to sign the agreement and move forward with disposal. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the project or about this agreement in particular.
Move to approve.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. The indemnification clause, we're only depositing things there that should go into that site, right? So what is the purpose of that indemnification clause?
Correct. We have a letter from the EPA that authorizes it to go there.
Okay, so why do we need that clause? So why do they need that clause?
They require, the landfill requires that clause to be in there. Because one thing that we all have to understand is once you deposit any kind of waste like this, you become jointly and severally liable for everything that's out there, okay? Meaning if everybody else was bankrupt and something happened out here, they could come after the city, all right? What you have to understand is no one takes this waste any place without having that kind of language in there. Now, everyone else that's out there has had to sign something similar. Where most of the waste came from here, the old Habco site, when it was cleaned up and 120 tons of arsenic was removed, it went to the same landfill site, and that was signed by Rio Tinto, okay? A huge multinational corporation, huge. And so they'd have liability as well if something ever happened. But you have to be able to dispose of it someplace. Only certain places meet the criteria to be able to dispose of it. We're just lucky that it happens to be a place that's so close to the city of North Kansas City. Because if we have to go step up one, I've learned, meaning to a more advanced landfill, our choice is really to take it then to Oklahoma. And so Sugarcreek, Oklahoma, and so they're not going to enter into agreement like this without indemnification language. Now, to put you a little at ease, almost every contract that leaves here that's drafted by me requires other people to indemnify this city on every. The shoe happens to be on the other foot this time,
okay,
and they're in the driver's seat.
Okay, so it's not that we're putting waste there that doesn't belong there. It's a standard process.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
If it didn't belong there, the EPA would not allow us to put it there, nor would MDNR. Okay. Nor would the owner, the operator of Courtney Ridge, Republic Services, whatever they're called.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Did we vote on that?
We had a motion.
There's a motion. I don't know if there's a second.
Second.
There was a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 19.
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through March 30th, 2018. Bill number 7284, ordinance number 9081.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through March 30th, 2018.
I move that bill number 7284 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9081.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Lodahl? Yes. Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through March 30th, 2018.
Mr. Eric.
Thanks, sir. Our upcoming city items of note is in your packet as always. Also in your packet is our quarterly report that we provided to you regarding the status of city projects and purchases, major city projects and purchases. It just provides an update on where we are on each of those budgeted items. At this point, I would like to call on our Assistant City Administrator, Kim Nakahoto.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would just like to talk about next week is Local Government Week. It's actually April 8th through 14th, And the city's communication team is going to be producing 5 videos that we are going to put out on the city's social media channels, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, highlighting the city departments and kind of how we play an active role in residents' lives.
Please watch for those.
Absolutely.
I'd like to call on City Clerk Crystal Doss.
I put a copy of the Harrah's Charitable Fund breakfast. If you guys could let me know before you leave tonight if you think you'll be there, I need to give them a count.
It's not really a breakfast.
It's a continental breakfast. It's snack foods and coffee.
No scrambled eggs, no sausage, no bacon, no biscuits. No.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, sir.
I guess Anita?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
I just wanted to say I hope everyone got out and voted today, and thanks to those who work the polls and for those who run for office. It is a challenge, an opportunity both to do both of those things. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that this weekend we have, what day is it? I don't remember. It's Parks and Rec building opening 1 o'clock on. Is that Saturday? Is that Saturday?
Saturday the 7th.
Saturday? Okay. I didn't know which day that was. Yes. Saturday the 7th. Okay. I just want to remind everyone about that. I did a terrible job reminding everyone about that, but I was trying to remind you all about that. That's all I have to say.
Well, congratulations to Mr. Harbor for coming on board. I think he and his lady friend, his wife, or someone left with him.
No comment.
I don't know. No comment. Oh, okay. All right. Mea culpa. There goes a rumor. Congratulations. That's all I've had.
That's enough.
Well, I would also like to welcome our new liquor control director. And it was one cold election day out at the polls today. So I want to thank everybody that got out and voted as well. Echo Valerie's comments on that. And want to thank Dr., I guess you say his name, Herrick, for the hospital board reappointment and for serving and continuing to serve. And I didn't know it was local government week next week, but happy local government week next week. That's it.
You know, when the park board actually opened that building, what, a month ago? They waited till now so it'd be warmer. And the high Saturdays in the 30s. I've already looked, but that's okay. I guess we're going to have it inside, I hope. And Zach, I drove by I went over and voted, then I drove by a couple of times in my heated truck and seen Zach out there stomping his feet. It was so cold. But
wave.
I did. I waved,
Zach,
honked
here I
my
am
horn.
again,
Yeah.
driving by in my warm truck.
And that's all I have.
Well, I want to thank everyone for voting today. And also, you know, it's been said, but I'll say it also, is the grand opening is Saturday at 1 o'clock for the new Parks and Recreation building. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday coming up is the Friends of the Library book sale. So I'll put that out as a reminder also. That's all I have.
Glad everyone got out and voted today. It was a little chilly out. Anita, I'm going to miss you. We've worked with you for the past 2 years. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
There's always one more half meeting, but I will still miss you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right. In case anyone missed it, the Parks and Recreation Center grand opening is Saturday at 1 p.m. It is free. Hope to see a lot of people out there. Also, the NKC Rotary Club is having their Spring Fling Beer Fest this Saturday at iWorks. Last year, they raised $2,600 for local scholarships, and I would encourage anyone to get an Uber, Lyft, or taxi home from that.
Where's it at?
That is at iWorks.
iWorks.
$30 online now, $40 at the door, and $10 for designated driver. And I'm going to be excited to see the NWL Arena open. That's the first branded wrestling venue in all of Kansas City. So, and that's on the 14th. They're having their first event. So.
Brian, when is that Parks Recreation deal?
That would be April 7th. I forgot to include that. I'm sorry. And I'm done. That's it.
Has there been any thought to moving our election place down to the Parks and Rec building instead of the YMCA?
That's the first time I've heard that suggested. That is something we can certainly take a look at for next year. We'll look into that.
Several seniors today came in and said, why can't we vote here?
See, I'm one of them seniors.
We never know it. We never notice.
I'll look into it.
We will. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, that's about all I got. So. Okay, numbers 23.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session is requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute Section 610-0211.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Lodahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.